What's up, guys? Hope you guys really enjoyed that opener. I just wanted to throw something together to give you guys a little teaser of what this one's going to be about. Today I'm going to do a build video, and what I'm doing is I'm showing you guys how I modded my Crossfire module into my iX12 Spektrum transmitter. With that said, let's just get into the build. Let's build. The first thing you want to do is get to this point. Take apart your radio, disconnect all the cables from this board, which are like these right here, right? Just disconnect them, and this top part, the face, set it aside. We don't need it. Also, so once you get to here, remove the the screws that secure this. Get this loose because it's going to be in the way. We're going to set this aside, and also get your Crossfire to this level. You want to take it out of the case and take the electronics out of this case. So let's take this, move it aside. Let's focus on this guy real quick. So, something you want to notice is that I already have some things marked because this is a redo that I'm just doing for you guys. So, I have this marked, that marked, and that marked. What these pretty much are is the test points for certain parts of these on these connectors. So the more important one is this one, right? Because you can get to positive and ground via the XT60 right here, but I prefer to solder onto actual pad. What I did is I know that on this connector right here, the second one in, the second one in from the back of this connector, that's what you want to do. So I checked all these test points to figure out which was which, and I figured out that this point right here, the one that I already have pre-tinned, matches the second pin. So that's where our signal wire is going to go. This is ground. And right here and here, this is where the positive wire is. So yeah, so that's what I'm going to solder to, and I recommend you soldering to that. Although some people have successfully soldered to the back of the XT60 port, it really doesn't matter. It's just preference. You know what? I don't like that. Like, oh, get that closer. That's much better. Alright, so now that we got this all set up and prepped and ready to go, let's set it aside. And now let's get the back plate, because we're going to do some things to the back plate to make it fit onto the iX12 very cleanly. So move the top plate, back plate, here we go. So the first thing you need to do is you need to drill a hole right about here, okay? I picked a spot generally in this area that would normally fit. So I just picked somewhere right in the middle. Well, that's where I put this hole. The other thing we need to do is you have to drill 4 holes, 1, 2, 3, 4 holes right where these are located. Now, it is very, very important that these locations are precise, and if you look carefully, it's really hard to see because I got the paint, or maybe it makes it easier because of the paint. The paint represents where the contour begins. They're right at the edge of the contour. In fact, I missed this hole. This hole doesn't even fit. And what these holes represent is these holes right here. 2, 3, 4. There's 4 holes right here. Now the best way I found to mark these is to take the screws you were going to use. In this case, it looks like these 12mm M3s that we have so many of in this hobby. Just grab 4 random, but they need to be like about 12mm, and then screw them all the way through. Just going to demo one real quick to where they protrude a little bit. See how this one's protruding? Yeah, let's turn it in the light. See how this one's protruding a little bit? All right, so once you get to there, take something. Whiteout works best. Any kind of white tape. I think in my case I used some Loctite only because it was just something that would be colorful. And then put a little dab right on the tip of each one. Now do this to all 4 at one time. Alright? Take your back plate and get it about where you want it to sit, and then without moving it, like this is the important thing, you don't want to smear it or anything. You just really want to just touch it and then lift it straight up, and then be careful not to touch the points. And what it'll do is it'll transfer whatever you used onto these little black, onto the back of the Crossfire case. Now, once you have that, the second thing I recommend you do is get a scratch awl like this, right? Something with a very fine point, right? And then go right in the middle of each dot and make an indentation, right? I'll just do one in the middle here for reference, but press really, really hard. Well, you can see in the light, right there is my indentation. There we go, now you can see. So right there's my indentation. So what that's going to do is when you go to drill, right, when you take your drill and you go to drill up the hole, it keeps the tip right where you need it to be. Like, see, like I'm moving it around and the tip's not moving it. It bites the center of the tip and holds it in place while you're drilling it out. Now, you also need to make sure that the hole you drill for this is a little bit smaller than this, like M3, I think. You do not want to drill a 3mm hole. 3 is the total width, and that's not what you want. You actually want it to be slightly smaller, so maybe 2.75 would be a good one. 2.5 would probably be a good one. Either way, you want it to where you can cut the threads with the screw, and it's threads in, like so. So once you get to that point, and all these are ready to, all these are drilled, and this hole's drilled, now we got to reassemble the Crossfire. Before you reassemble this, you want to mount your plate, your back plate to this to A, get the threaded started, and B, get this hole lined up. Now that's not something I did originally. This is like a forward-thinking tip. Hindsight's 20/20. I should have done it the first time, which is why you see 2 holes here, because I missed the first time and it didn't work and I had to re-drill. So wherever you put this hole, get these mounted to the screws, and then mount it just temporary, and then drill the hole into this into your iX12 so you can pass through the cables, right? So a little tip is to go ahead and wrap all these up. You have to go around the side, and I would be careful about this chip right here. So try and slide it down this path right. Try and slide it down this path right here. Let's go ahead and feed them through the hole. Now I found that the space tolerance between the edge of this and the case is pretty small, so they need to be really close to flat, or you might pinch a wire, and I'm struggling to make that happen. I can feel it getting tight as I'm trying to push that, and it's this red that's kind of in the way. Now once it gets behind it, it's fine, but right here at the edge is there. Now see all that slack? We don't want any of that slack. So we're just going to start pulling the slack out. Alright, so now that the wires are fed through, we need to secure this board right back onto the back plate here, and then put the top plate back on. So let's just do that real quick. Alright, so this guy is 100% ready to be mounted onto the transmitter. So let's get the transmitter back. Alright, so a couple other things that I did with my transmitter that you may or may not want to do is I only use 3 switches. Alright, so I use this switch for arming, and then there's 2 other switches on the front case. One is for beeper, and this one's for turtle mode. All these other switches I just put caps on. In fact, here, I'll just show you real quick. I have a 3D printer, so I just 3D printed some caps to hold up because I don't need the extra switches, and I don't like having extra switches and dials and knobs and things that I don't need. They just get in my way. I left this fourth switch on there. Now what I use this fourth switch for is actually as a power switch for my Crossfire. Alright, I like to be able to manually control when the Crossfire is on and off. It's just a preference of mine. So that's what this blue wire is for right here, okay? Now, the other thing that we need to figure out is this port right here, which when it's installed, right? So this is the port that you would normally connect to, that would connect into the bottom of this connector right here, and then you would externally power your Crossfire with the LiPo from that XT30 port, all right? But I want it all internal, which is why I'm doing it this way. So we got to figure out which is which. Now, I've already done all the homework. Basically what it is this one. So you got 1, 2, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll call this row 1, this row 2, and this is slide 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 3, that's your signal. 1, 4 is your power, and 2, 4 is your ground. All right, and I also put a ground over here as well. That's just what I do. Before we do anything else, we got to get this Crossfire and the cables ran in. Another thing you need to know about is, see how this structure right here, it's solid all the way around these mounting holes, and that's fine, except it's going to create pinch points when you go to feed these wires through the hole. Right? You got to channel this out. I just used an X-Acto knife and chopped at it until the channel was big enough to feed everything. And now you can safely feed these cables all the way through, and then feed one cable in, and it should just work. Once you get to this position, you need to get this mounted by lining up the holes with the screws. You don't want to over tighten, because the last thing you want to do is strip out that plastic, because then whatever you've done is useless. So there we go. This is mounted, right? It ain't going nowhere. Right? And that's it. There's no, I mean, that's not it, but look, there's no wires that are going to be fed there. It's going to be super, super clean. So now that we're here, let's go ahead and get this channeled right in there, and then get this board right here reinstalled again. Alright, now that that's mounted, you want to tin those with some solder, because there is some solder there, but there's not going to be a lot. So I'm not going to add a lot because I've already pre-tinned those, but just because I talked about it, I'm going to show you by pre-tinning them real quick. And it's not a bad idea to always pre-tin when you do some work. Alright, so now it's good to solder on. Alright, so this power from the switch is going to go over to the power over here. And one of the grounds is going to go to this pin, and the other ground is going to go here. Alright, so the last thing we need to do, we got to get this guy on this switch. And that's that. Now it's all wired up, okay? And that's pretty much it. Now remember, if you don't want to use this switch right here that I'm using, I just like it. This red wire that came and went to the switch, that would go where this blue wire is right here. So this red wire will go to pin 1-4 if you do not want to use the switch. But I'm using the switch, and so that's how this one's wired, right? So that's it. Now all you need to do is just reassemble everything. So let's do that real quick. Let's reassemble and turn it on. That's it. She's all built. So now we're going to put the battery back in. Alright, so flip that switch, flip all these switches. All of mine are forward, so this is disarmed, this is no beeper, this is no turtle mode, this is no power to the Crossfire. Ooh! Don't forget your antenna. Turning it on. There it goes. So we're gonna let this boot up, and I'm gonna get a quad ready so I can show you that it actually connects. Connected. Green light on the receiver. The light back on. That's it, guys. That is a fully modified and functional Crossfire on the back of an iX12. It's working perfectly with no wires, and that little power switch turns it on and off. So you can preserve battery life by turning it off. Alright guys, so that's it. That's the build. Fully functional Crossfire. Clean. Works. The switch turns it on and off. It's just how I like it. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you have any questions, I monitor my YouTube channel quite frequently, so when you post something, I'll see it, and I'll do my best to answer it. If it's answered in the video, though, I don't know, you just ignore it, like watch the video. Anyways, tell me what you think about this. I don't normally do build videos. Maybe I'll do some more. I don't know. I have ideas, but I don't know what I'm going to do. Either way, hit the subscribe button, click that bell. I'll see you guys next time.